Hey everybody. So today we're going to talk about we're going to talk about disposition some more. I'll link the other video, the last one, to this one. We're going to talk about dispositions and how they're important with empty houses, how they come into play. So, okay, I'll see a lot of times on forums and stuff, you know, I have a certain house empty in my chart. So does that mean that that house doesn't mean anything to me? Or does that mean that nothing will happen in that area of life, that the house represents for me? Things like that. No. No, empty houses don't mean that area of life is like a void or anything like that. What they do show is there's always something going on there regardless. There may not be planetary energy that needs to be expressed in that house, which in a way maybe makes that house not quite as important. I want to word that really carefully because it's important regardless, right? The houses are important regardless if there's a planet in there or not. But yeah, perhaps that area of life wasn't a major focus for you this time around. Perhaps that house's area of life wasn't a major focus. It wasn't something that you needed to focus super hard on. And that instance is going crazy. Move that over. But it's still important nonetheless. So here, let me show you a chart. Here's the star card book. Here's the chart. And here's the example that we have. And okay, so notice how there's nothing in the 9th house, right? Okay. So there's nothing in the 9th house. So it looks like that area, if you were looking at it like some people do when they knee-jerk look at a chart and they're like, oh, that house is empty, that must mean that's not important to me. Well, perhaps that wasn't like a super important area of life that person wanted to focus on by way of just that house. But this is where dispositions come in. You would then want to look at, in that example, the 9th house is ruled by Leo. So you would want to then look at where the sun falls in the chart. In this chart, the sun is in the 12th. Full disclosure, this is mine. We used both mine and Natalie's as examples in the book. So this one's mine. But so we've got the 9th house bending to the 12th. So while the 9th house areas of life may not have been a focus of mine that planetary energy wanted to express itself through, it's going to express itself through the 12th because the sun falls there and because the sun is the planetary ruler of Leo, which rules the 9th house cusp. So that might make, I don't know, a lot of my journeys more unconscious in nature. Perhaps I journey more than I think I do. That might be true. Things like that. But you want to look at where the for the empty houses, you want to make sure you look at where the planetary ruler of that house cusp falls. Because that's the area of life that empty house will bend to. And you do this you want to do these dispositions by house. That's really what I should have called this fucking video. Or started off with dispositions by house cusp. You can do this with all of them, right? With all the houses. With all the house cusps. And you actually want to do them with all the house cusps, regardless if there are planets there or not. Because even if there are planets there, right? Like, okay, for example, I got a shitload of stuff in the first house in Sagittarius, right? There's a lot of shit. A lot of shit I like, but a lot of shit. Okay, so that house, first house, the ascendant ruled by Sagittarius, it's, even though there are planets there, it's still going to bend to where Jupiter is. In my chart, Jupiter falls in the 4th in Aries, and it's retrograde. So all of that stuff in my first house, you know, will bend to Jupiter. Will bend to the 4th. Now, depending on what house system that you use, right? Actually, let me back up just a little bit. So if you use whole signs, right, it's nice and clean. You know, you don't have 2 signs in a house. So this won't really pertain to people that use whole signs, but in this case, like in the example there, in my example, I have Neptune and Capricorn in the first house, but they're in the Capricorn portion of the first house, being conditioned by Sagittarius. So it kind of depends on how you feel about this. I would say all of the first house, regardless of what sign it falls in, is going to bend to the first house, you know, the cusp ruler, the planetary cusp ruler of the first. Some people might not do it that way. That's fine, you know. If it works for you to do it another way, that's fine too. Because even though those planets are in Capricorn in the first, they're still being conditioned by Sagittarius, right? So they all kind of fall under that Sagittarius umbrella, if you will. They're still Neptune and the moon are still in Capricorn, but they're being conditioned by Sagittarius. So I would still say even those that are in Capricorn bend to where Jupiter is, since they fall in the first house, which is Jupiter ruled. But again, not everybody does it that way. That's fine. But definitely go through your chart, and I would kind of make a table. I mean, you don't have to make a table if you don't want to, but I think it's easier. Sometimes I think it helps you to learn to actually write things out, right? Make a table of where your house cusps, where the signs on the house cusp, where those planets fall, and where those houses bend, because that will give you an idea. Whatever planet has a large amount of planets bending to it by way of the house they fall in, I think that gives you an idea of perhaps a house that's very important in your chart. Like using my example, I've got all that stuff in Sagittarius, right? All that stuff in the first, bending to Jupiter. Now, bending to Jupiter in the fourth. To me, if I didn't know me, you know, and I was a client of mine, I wasn't me, I would think that the fourth house, well, taking the north node out of the equation, because obviously the north node is important here, but take that out. I would think that the fourth house was incredibly important, because all of those planets in the first will bend to Jupiter in the fourth. So definitely want to look at that kind of thing. At what, if you have a lot of planets in a certain house, what house they end up bending to. Definitely take that into consideration as well. But yeah, I think I'm going to stop here. Because I've noticed that the longer that these are, the harder they are to upload. Oh my God, one I did the other day took forever to upload. Anyway, I hope you found this informative. I'll continue on with the disposition thing in another video, probably right after this. But yeah, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can follow us on Instagram at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology. Natalie is at Abaturno Astrology. If you're watching this on Instagram, you can find us on YouTube. You can search it, Let's Fuck With Astrology, into the YouTube search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, you can find us on the subreddit, Let's Fuck With Astrology, or type in r/Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, you can go to Let's Fuck with Astrology.com/star cards. I don't know why I had to think about that for a second. Okay. Well, I'll see y'all later.